Steve Lawrence was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina on June 30th, 1949. When his dad's enlistment in the Army ended, the family was on the move to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where Steve attended Cheyenne Central with classmates Chris Ledoux. In fact, Steve became the first DJ to play a Chris Ledoux record. After high school graduation, he attended Sheridan College and graduated in 1969. From Sheridan, he found his way to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for school. It was there that he lost his student deferral and was immediately reclassified as 1A. With the idea he may be drafted any day, he took a job at KBBS in Buffalo. By this time, his family had moved to Fort Worth, Texas, and Steve didn't want to go there. He never got drafted, he never went back to school, and he never left Buffalo, Wyoming. He started at KBBS in March of 1970. Early in September, he had to go to Denver for another draft physical, thinking that it wasn't long before he'd be called up for duty. Steve says he came back to the station that Friday and was told that the person who had been doing the sports play-by-play had been fired. About 2 o'clock that afternoon, he was told that he would be doing the football game that night. Since he didn't even know how to set up the equipment, he was more than a little nervous. He did the game and was hooked. For the past 36 seasons, Steve's been doing football and basketball play-by-play, some rodeo, and a little baseball along the way, loving every second of it. While attending Sheridan College, Steve met his wife-to-be, Janet. She tells the story of having to change the wedding date because of basketball season. They had wanted a Valentine's wedding, but Steve had a basketball game to do, so they rescheduled for March of 1971. Anyone that has been married to a sportscaster realizes that their life revolves around games and travel time. For Steve, his life has been about a job he really has loved and his family. Many times his family became part of his job. His sons Brandon and Travis were part of his broadcast crew from time to time. He has also had the same football crew for many years. Steve has been very active in his community, which is reflected in his love for bringing back the games to his listeners.
Up to Prosinski, another inside spin move, lays it up, and good! Christopher Prosinski gives the Bison the lead for the first time in the ballgame.
Laura Grott, WAB president, said she was watching Steve and his partner broadcast the boys' high school state basketball game. She said she sat there with a smile on her face, watching Steve because he was broadcasting the game and cheering at the same time. Something exciting would happen and his arms would fly up in the air. She said you would have thought his own son was playing the game. It was very evident he loves what he does. Steve has also coached Little League and soccer. He was involved in Stars Behind Bars and pig wrestling events. Away from the gyms and football fields, Steve has had the opportunity to interview many famous people. Hoyt Axton and Rulon Gardner, Robert Urich, Joe Beth Williams, Tommy Overstreet, George Jones, and Tammy Wynette. In addition to celebrity types, he has also interviewed congressmen, including Dick Cheney, and many governors and congressmen. Steve is a former president of the Wyoming Association of Broadcasters and is proud of the 7 years he served the industry. One of the highlights of his tenure includes his trip to Washington, D.C. for the NAB State Leadership Conference. The group of attendees fondly remembers Steve stopping on the streets in D.C. to buy a patriotic tie for $3 from the street vendors. His daughter Heather and his wife Janet were able to join them on that trip to D.C. Over the years, Steve has been honored by the WAB for Best Play-by-Play and Best Sports. Steve has been the voice for Johnson County sports for over 36 years. When you think about someone deserving of recognition in the broadcast industry, it's names like Steve Lawrence that come to mind. He does what he does because he loves sports, broadcasting, and his community. the Wyoming Association of Broadcasters is honored to induct Steve Lawrence into the Hall of Fame. Steve, thank you for serving your local community and for all the miles you put on your vehicles and for your love of the game. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Lawrence.